We believe that peace is at hand.
The military command post just across this road is outside the town of Jodaha, only a few miles from the Cambodian border. As best we can tell, this is the South Vietnamese command post for the operation into the Cambodian Parrot's Beak. But the strictest kind of security is being enforced here, even to the point where the one American advisor we've seen warned us not to ask questions.
With the signing of the Paris Peace Accords, peace in Vietnam seems imminent. As the war comes to a conclusion, veterans returning to America must contend with readjusting to life in a country also struggling to find its own place after the long war.
We did abandon the South Vietnamese, and it's a real shame.
President Nixon faces insurmountable political odds while facing charges from the Watergate break-in. And Congress does everything in their power to distance themselves from the war-torn country of Vietnam. This is the war's end and the painful repercussions of a peace lost.
It took the population of the United States probably 15, maybe even 20 years after that to realize that it wasn't the warrior who lost the war, it was the politicians that were running the war.
March 29th, 1973.
For the first time in 12 years, no American military forces are in Vietnam. All of our American POWs are on their way home. The 17 million people of South Vietnam have the right to choose their own government without outside interference. And because of our program of Vietnamization, they have the strength to defend that right. We have prevented the imposition of a communist government by force on South Vietnam. There are still some problem areas. The provisions of the agreement requiring an accounting for all missing in action in Indochina. The provisions with regard to Laos and Cambodia. The provisions prohibiting infiltration from North Vietnam into South Vietnam have not been complied with. We have and will continue to comply with the agreement. We shall insist that North Vietnam comply with the agreement. And the leaders of North Vietnam should have no doubt as to the consequences if they fail to comply with the agreement. But despite these difficulties, we can be proud tonight of the fact that we have achieved our goal of obtaining an agreement which provides peace with honor in Vietnam.
President Richard Nixon gives his triumphant address to the nation as U.S. troops withdraw from South Vietnam, remaining behind to ease in the transition and offer support are 159 U.S. Marines for embassies and offices in Da Nang, Bien Ho, Can Tho, and Nha Trang. 50 more officers also stay to establish the Defense Attaché's office. The war in Vietnam is the longest in American history at that point. The 15 years of conflict have claimed 47,244 lives on the battlefields and 10,446 non-combat deaths. 153,329 are seriously wounded, with 10,000 of them amputees. It has been a costly war. In April, President Nixon once more promises South Vietnamese President Thieu military support in the event that North Vietnam breaks the peace treaty. America will continue to provide financial support and military equipment to the South Vietnamese. In many ways, It is a concession for the treaty allowing North Vietnam to keep soldiers in the South.
We got our lives together, and we watched the news. We felt bad for the guys over there. And then when it ended in 1973, when POWs came home, we watched it on TV. I watched it on TV. I wanted to see some of these guys. I didn't know anybody, but it felt good to see that happening. And there was a lot more that probably could have came home that never did.
There were a total of 662 American POWs in Vietnam. About 602 came home with us, 601 or 602 came home with us in the big group. The rest were either released early or died in captivity.
On April 1st, 1973, the last known prisoner of war, Captain Robert White, is released. The White House hosts a special dinner for prisoners of war on May 24th, 1973. Amongst the guests are Bob Hope, songwriter Irving Berlin, performer Sammy Davis Jr., and a certain Duke, also the star of 1968's patriotic Vietnam War movie, The Green Berets.
I think this is a great country. It's a lot better off with you fellas back here.
For the other veterans returning, it is not such a festive occasion. As part of what many see as a senseless war, they take the brunt of society's views of Vietnam.
They really made a big deal about it. It was like a VIP coming home. It was a big deal. They had a parade downtown, and we didn't realize at that time that the other guys who came back from Vietnam weren't treated like that. And it's not, I guess it's as close to a survivor's guilt as you could get. As we felt bad that we're getting all these accolades and stuff, and basically, all we were we surrendered and got captured, and that's all we really did. We fought, and we stayed together, but we really didn't accomplish a lot for Uncle Sam. And then all of a sudden we're getting this big heroes thing, and these other guys, a lot of them, legs. Well, several of our guys were had amputations also, and most of us were pretty banged up. But it's no big deal. So we got treated like VIPs, and I'm not saying it's to the detriment of the other guys. I don't think anybody could begrudge us the treatment, but I'm not sure it was fair compared to what they went through.
To many veterans, being part of the United States military in the war is a mark of shame, not a badge of courage. Aside from dealing with social rejection, many come home suffering physical and emotional problems, including post-traumatic stress disorder, where one continues to feel fear long after the danger has passed.
My back is still a major issue, and there's been permanent damage to my body that will never be corrected. Emotionally, we've got PTSD, and with PTSD, it's a certain amount of paranoia and who knows what else.
When I came home, my mother and my father never even asked me what it was like. It was like, you do not, the idea of being one day in green fatigues, changing dressings on somebody who might have lost a leg or an arm, and then 24 hours later being in the United States, and it's like it never happened, and it was a shock.
It is not only some of the civilian population that disapprovingly looks at participation in Vietnam, but even some former servicemen from other wars, as Terry Steer learns upon his return home.
One of the things I did is one of the friends told me we got to go join the VFW. And here's my bad plug about the VFW. And I went to a meeting, and they got a bar. They gave me a key that was my password to get in. And I went up to a meeting one night, and I'm sitting there, and somebody says to me, one of the older guys, World War II guys, says, "What are you doing up here?" And I says, "Well, I'm a member of VFW. I fought in Vietnam." And he says, That wasn't a declared war. So if you want to go down and drink beer with us, that's okay, but we don't need you in at the meetings. And I am not the only one that said that. I've heard that from a lot of people. Back then, because ours was not a declared war, it was a police action. They wondered how we got eligible for a VFW. Today, they want us because, you know, they're all dying off. We've got to keep that thing going. But it was just a shameful thing is, you know, I paid my dues for a lot of years, but never went to meetings because they didn't like us.
I think the biggest thing that bothered me, especially when I came back, I think my family was aware of it, I think my wife was aware of it, is that we didn't get the gratitude that we were expecting. You know, we'd grown up seeing pictures of the guys coming home from World War II in columns, you know, getting welcomed back, and especially even like in the Korean War, a lot of the guys came home as a unit. The Vietnam War was totally different.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to help us produce more compelling historical content like this, please like, comment below, and share this video with fellow history buffs. And of course, be sure to subscribe to help keep history happening.